After leaving Derry Beach in County Donegal, we decided to head towards Belfast, but stopping off back at Derry. We wanted to take a look at some of the murals depicting the Troubles. Here in the Bogside area of Derry, on the 30th of January 1972, a march had been organised by the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association to protest against internment without trial. The march proceeded from the Cregan estate with the intended destination of the Guildhall. They never made it that far. British soldiers from the 1st Battalion of the Parachute Regiment opened fire and shot at 26 unarmed civilians during the protest. 13 men were killed instantly and another later died from their wounds 4 months later.
Mural in the Bogside, folks. This mural depicts the faces of the victims of Bloody Sunday. Right at the centre of the image, at the top, you see a young man named Gerald Donaghey. He was shot in the alleyway over there in Belfast Park. Right, Gerald was found, sort of take it back, the families of the victims were forced to live for 38 years. The British state was lying about what happened here on Bloody Sunday. They never gave up hope. In the early 90s they began a Truth and Justice campaign. And they fought very courageously. In 1998, then British Prime Minister Tony Blair was forced to call a second inquiry into the events of Bloody Sunday. This is only the first time in British legal history a second inquiry has ever been called into anything like this. This new inquiry, which everyone hoped would be done properly, was led by a judge named Lord Saville. And Saville, in contrast to Widgery, who was working on it for weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, Saville worked on this report for 10 years, just under 10 years. He heard from everybody. He flew into Derry and heard from eyewitnesses here at the Guildhall, but he also heard from people in London and all over the UK, so he was flying back and forth all the time with his team. When Saville published his findings in June of 2010, he said what everyone here in Derry had been saying for decades, that all the dead and wounded had been innocent, and that the shootings were unjustified and unjustifiable. But there was one glaring hole in Saville's report. Saville says that though he was innocent, and he said he was innocent, 17-year-old Gerald Donaghey, in Saville's words, probably had nail bombs in his pockets when he was killed. This is a lie. Gerald was shot in that alleyway. He was carried into the house of a local man, and a doctor was called for. The doctor kind of patted him down looking for identification on him. He had nothing in his pockets. The doctor takes a look at him and says, he's in a very bad way, but he's young. If you get him to a hospital now, I think there's a chance he'll live. So he's lifted. He's laid across the knees of 3 other young men in the back of a car, and they rush him from here to the hospital. Halfway between here and the hospital, the car is pulled over by the soldiers of the Parachute Regiment and other security forces in the town at the time, a place called Barrack Street. All the young men in the car who were rushing Gerald to the hospital are arrested and held overnight, and Gerald is taken off them. When he's brought to the hospital later, he's dead, having been left in the back of an army transport at an RUC barracks to bleed to death. When the army bring him to the hospital later, they've planted the nail bombs in his pockets. That's why he is here at the centre of the image, because the fight is continuing to fully exonerate and clear his name.
So what's this, end of an house?
Yeah, it's the end of a...
Gable end.
Gable end of a house. Presumably it's a row of terraces. The rest of the house has been demolished to make way for dual carriageway road system.
Want a photograph together?
Yeah.
Do we?
We can do,
Oh,
yeah.
you may as well.
We're filming at the moment,
Oh,
so
sorry.
it's a video that we're doing. So we've just been on a tour and learnt a bit about the Troubles and Bloody Sunday.
This shop here, that's now apparently a Chinese takeaway, used to be a TV repairman, and he used to, back in the day, we were told, they didn't have secure comms, and so the actual guy in there had tuned his. He was recording it all, but he was also recording the AM broadcasts that the soldiers were making between themselves, and that was actually refused as evidence. So it wasn't actually permissible as evidence because it was acquired illegally. Well, evidence is evidence, however it's acquired, surely.
Didn't they send him those tapes over at border into the Republic?
Yeah, they got them over the border really quickly. Then, of course, the British couldn't touch them.
So these streets were barricaded, weren't they?
Yeah.
This street here, at side of you, that was barricaded.
Just at the top where that white building is, was where the barricade was.
Where this white building is
This
here.
white building here is across there where the barricade was. Where
it's quite a complicated part of history, and it's
a
something
very
that
complicated
I
part.
struggle to. I can read it and listen to it, but to remember it is quite difficult because it's quite complicated, I think.
Well, I was...
Because it's political as well, isn't it?
I mean, I grew up, obviously, 1969. I was too young to fully understand it or contemplate it, but you heard it always from the point of view of the English media, and we know how reasonable English media are, don't we, even back then. And you had 1974 with the Bloody Sunday. It was pretty well a given from the broadcasting at the time and the reporting at the time that the paratroopers had shot people carrying bombs and firing guns at them. It was all very, talked of in terms of defence of the paratroopers, not that they just went out on a killing spree of unarmed citizens.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Falls Road, A501.
They shut these still, don't they?
Well, I think in times of high tension,
Yeah. Can't really hear you because we've not got microphones on.
during times of high tension, these gates will be shut and locked and barricaded. You've got your peace wall there. Ironic, isn't it? They call it a peace wall when it's all about war. Okay, should we just go to the other side? So we've just passed from the Catholic side, obviously where Bobby Sands' mural was,
In a quarter of a
and
mile, turn right onto Shankill Road, B39.
she spoilt my surprise. Yes, we're heading to the Shankill Road, but we visited the Falls Road, which looks very run down, and like a lot of inner cities, to be fair. Can't remember what happened there. Gonna have to have a little bit of research, because my memory is so shaky on this, because I was young. But
Turn right onto Shankill Road, B39.
I remember various atrocities, riots, whatever, on both roads. So this is now Shankill Road. This looks similarly run down. What I had forgotten was Bobby Sands was elected to be MP, and I'd just spoken to one of the guides who somebody else was paying, and I said, I've completely forgotten Bobby Sands was an MP. Wasn't that when he was in prison? And the taxi driver, as it turned out, actually said it was while Bobby Sands was on hunger strike. So clearly he was an MP for less than 66 days, because that's how long the hunger strike lasted before he passed away. So yeah, it's all fascinating. Okay, right, this road is the Shankill Road.
Protestant side.
This is the Protestant side. Union Jacks and George flags there, which kind of gives it away a bit, doesn't it? Look at some of the more recent murals. I think there is quite a lot of pressure for young people to maintain the peace. Hope is in the youth of Ireland for certain. They certainly don't want to slip back to times of the Troubles. There's less discrimination. There isn't no discrimination, but there's less discrimination. We spoke to a young lady, an Irish young lady, who in Derry, who actually said, the young people aren't interested in this, and they oh look, monarch, one to do with the Queen. That wouldn't be on the Catholic side, would it? And she actually said that the young people actually aren't that interested in religion, and she actually pointed to her boyfriend and said, well, he's Catholic and I'm Protestant, or was it the other way around? But the thing is, she said 10 years ago that would not have happened. So times are changing, people are finally moving on. If only the older politicians could learn from the young people, eh? And there's another mural here coming up. They love their murals, don't they? There you are. Probably orange marches and stuff like that. And again, something I'm a bit shaky on, orange marches. That's to do with the Protestant side, and I don't know why they dress in orange, but they will march in the orange regalia or whatever with their marching band. Oh yes, but they'll be marching through. Oh, diesel cheap, look at that, it's only 139.9. 139.9.